Ashton Rich. It's crunch time.
It's crunch time here in the studios of 91.9 FM. Jeff Matthews, Ashton Rich, Brad Bader in the studios. I don't think we even knew we were going to be coming live right now. But I was just told that we are officially live, so
here we are.
We are just going to jump right in. Just to let the producers and everybody else know, I do not have a timer on me, so just kind of let me know when we got to keep it rolling. But anyway, it's kind of been a little bit interesting in the sports world the past few weeks, last week especially. Just a lot of things kind of going on. And then now we kind of come into this week, a lot of things going forward. Baseball season's right around the corner. We're looking at a lot of NFL movement, kind of anticipating what the draft's going to look like, especially after the first couple rounds. And then we got to look at basketball season's kind of getting towards the end right now. March Madness is finishing up, I believe, next weekend. It is going to be quite an interesting next few weeks. But to start things off, as always...
Don't ask me how my weekend was.
As always. Brad, how was your weekend?
Fantastic. I was able to buy myself a new whip.
Okay.
Got a 2021 Jeep Cherokee Latitude.
Blessings.
That is wild. That's awesome. I can't wait to buy my first ever car.
I bought my first car last summer. Massively overrated.
Nice.
It's massively overrated. Just
massively overrated.
Yeah. Take the paid off as long as you can keep it.
Yeah.
No joke.
Oof. Hopefully, I'm trying to get to the point to just pay cash for it. You know what I mean? Go the Dave Ramsey way.
Yeah.
Always going to have to, pay cash for things. My weekend was actually pretty fun. I went down to Chattanooga for the weekend.
I saw that on your social media, buddy.
Yeah,
How was that?
It was interesting. Ended up hiking. I'm not a big hiker, but, when the whole group says we're going to go, you kind of just got to go. So my thighs are on fire right now. Chattanooga has some beautiful hiking trails, but they'll put your legs to the test if you're not prepared for it.
I bet.
But it was a good weekend. We had a great time. We went down there to go actually do one of the Ruby Falls, I believe, and then we were actually going to go do some golfing on Sunday. Rain did not let either one of those things happen, so we ended up just going and doing a couple of axe throwing places, and then we went to a couple of places downtown. Anyway, it was a good time. Had a great time. Glad to be back. Ready to get back into work. So with that being said, we're going to start things off with Austin Peay football. Tight game this past weekend against Jacksonville State. It looked like it was a strong defensive game.
So, I'm not going to lie. I did not watch the game on Sunday simply because I was going into the week of, we just lost to Martin. Like, Jacksonville State hadn't lost yet. They're, top 10 in the nation. We're probably going to get smoked. And then I was pleasantly surprised Sunday night to open my phone and see, oh, wow, we won 13-10.
Oh, yeah.
All hell. So, in looking through the box score, neither team particularly played well on the offensive end. Austin Peay, really the one bright spot on the day offensively for really either team was D'Angelo Wilson, 10 catches, 130-something yards, and a touchdown. Draylon Ellis, I guess the best thing you could say is he didn't make the mistake to lose. On the other side, Zion Webb threw 4 interceptions.
So I have him at 211 yards, 1 touchdown, and 1 interception. Not the best numbers for sure, especially we've seen him put up bigger numbers than that.
With a W, we'll take it.
Exactly, right? You got to always think positive. A W is a W, and I think for Austin Peay, they needed a couple W's.
Yes, and Jay, one of our producers and fellow graduate assistants, was actually showing me a scenario this morning. There is a chance that we still get the automatic bid for winning the conference. The scenario plays out like this. We have to win out, so we have to beat Murray this week, and we have to win next week against Eastern Illinois.
Possible, right?
Right. This week, Eastern Illinois has to beat Jacksonville State, so not as possible, and Murray has to lose to Jacksonville State next week. And that would create a 3-way tiebreaker where Austin Peay has the wins over the two teams that have to share the tiebreaker, and they would get the automatic bid. But I haven't seen betting lines for the Jacksonville State EIU game, but I'm going to go ahead and say that Jacksonville State, Jacksonville State team is probably going to be favored by a couple touchdowns.
I think you're probably right on that. Austin Peay has just kind of had some ups and downs. We've seen some progress in Draylon Ellis. He's come in, he's had a couple of really good games, a couple of good performances. Had a couple of times where there were a couple mistakes made, things didn't progress, definitely put some L's in that L column. But going forward, like you talked about that scenario, it's still a possibility. And we've seen the Governors come back from some down positions. They were just kind of trying to figure things out, but they've been able to pick things up before. So hopefully in the next coming weeks they can do that, and maybe we can get another bid into the OVC, into the playoffs here. But the biggest question I have for you, Ashton, is do you think that Austin Peay can go far into the playoffs?
It just kind of depends. I think that the field this year in the FCS is not as strong. You know, your Central Arkansas, your North Dakota States, your Eastern Washingtons, your Jacksonville States, they're always going to be there. Your James Madisons, for that matter, Villanova. But I just, it kind of really depends on who you get matched up with. I think that, because a lot of teams are experiencing, some guys that are opted out, some guys that aren't playing due to COVID and other things like that. So I would have to say that football a lot of times can be a lot like basketball. It all just depends on who gets hot at the right time. But I just don't. First or second round, maybe. Definitely not as deep as the run they made in 2019.
Absolutely. I think you're right on that. I think it's also really weird because of the situation that they're in. I mean, you're playing in the spring, which you've never done before.
Brand new head coach.
Brand new head coach, which, I mean, I think a lot of people thought that was kind of wild, that whole situation that happened with our previous coach. But, do you think there's people who are playing football right now in this conference, and actually even in this whole entire league right now, the SES, do you think that there are people who are not taking it too seriously because it is COVID year?
I think it's the opposite. I think a lot of coaches are seeing it as an opportunity to get extra work in an off season where you might have gotten a lot of work in the regular season. If you're, in Austin Peay, a team like Austin Peay who played 3 or 4 games in the fall, you get to come back and play, 8 or 7 or 8 more in the spring. And so I think a lot of coaches are seeing this as a good opportunity to quickly implement systems if you're a new coach, but I think it can also be detrimental on your end where if you have prospects who are looking towards the NFL or other leagues, maybe they're not trying to put as much effort into it just because they're trying to, save their bodies or something like that.
I think that does make sense, but I think you're right. I think you mentioned like a new head coach like we have. I think it gives them an opportunity to really make progress because you kind of come in and, it's not that you're not taking this season super serious, but what it is you're now just kind of using this season as a way to kind of implement your ideas into the team, and then that way, during that off season, your team has now already been prepared for what you're going to bring in the fall.
And especially for Coach Walden here, I think it's a great thing because you got hired in like December, I believe, November, December. So typically when you get hired that late in the process, you have the whole off season and you have spring camp and you have the spring game. So you really only ever see your system live full speed like once.
Correct.
In this instance, you're getting to see it live full speed and you're getting to see the progress week to week every week throughout the spring season. So I think it's going to, especially for a first-time head coach like Walden, well, not first time, but first time and at a larger stage because he was the head coach at Eastern Texas Baptist, I believe was the school.
I believe so.
I think it's a good way to kind of, the measuring stick and kind of figure out, okay, where are we doing well with my system and where are we not doing as well in the system.
I think you're right. And then also, I mean, thinking about just the players individually, I mean, some of these players who, maybe aren't getting that many repetitions right now are just trying to learn the system, trying to figure things out. And, sometimes it takes a while for these players to really grasp what the coach is trying to do. You give them a full season like this, and then you bring them into the fall. Well, I mean, now they already know what the system looks like, and they can kind of work on perfecting it in the offseason.
Absolutely. And as a player, it always helps when you can kind of make things – you can kind of compare things to what you know in the past systems. So, like a certain call on offense, like in the air raid as an example, their routes for wide receivers are all done by numbers. So a 9 is like a go route. A 7 is like a post. In a West Coast system, it might be called something completely different. But if you can say, okay, well, this is the same as a 9 in an air raid, if that's what you know, then that helps a lot in the learning process.
Absolutely. We're going to go ahead and move on to our next topic. This one kind of, for me at least, kind of came out of nowhere, kind of
I think it
a
did
little
for
bit.
all of us.
I mean, it came out of nowhere, but yet again, when you really think about it, it made sense.
Sure.
I think it's just kind of the truth of the matter. Coach Matt Figure of the Austin Peay men's basketball team has officially resigned from his post and is moving all the way down to Texas at the University of Texas in Rio Grande Valley.
Yeah.
Do we just have like a coach exchange program down in Texas?
I think so. I think that's what
Pretty
it is. Right? I got a good guy. You guys send it.
Yeah.
And I'll send this back down.
No, this was definitely a shocker.
It really, I mean, yes, the timing of it was. A friend of mine posted on Facebook, and then he kind of mentioned the fact of using Austin Peay as a stepping stone. And I think for Coach Matt Figure, I think that was just I think that was just what his plans were.
Sure, but if you're using Austin Peay as a stepping stone to go to the University of Texas Rio Grande Valley that I heard about 3 days ago, you're stepping backwards, not forwards.
That's 100% a true statement.
I mean, I'm not trying to throw shade on them or anything. I know virtually nothing about the school itself. I did a quick Google search to make sure that acronym was correct, and know virtually nothing about them. I
Not
don't
really,
know anything about
no.
their basketball program or anything like that.
I mean,
but
like you said earlier, I think before the show we were talking. It's more of either it's a lateral move
At best.
At best, right? I mean, there's not really much progress you're making. Here's the thing. I mean, you also have to think about Coach Figure came in. I mean, he leaves behind the legacy of Terry Taylor. I mean, Terry Taylor was there. He coached him for 3 years, and so he has been able to kind of develop him. So I think that just leaves Matt Figure completely tied to Austin Peay for a very long time.
Sure.
I think now that Terry Taylor is gone, I think Matt Figure just chose that this was the time for him to kind of try something new. So maybe there is some
agree with that.
special. I think there's some special talent maybe down there in the Rio Grande Valley,
Gotta be.
right? And
The next
Coach
John
Fig-
Morant's down
yeah,
there.
exactly. Matt Figure is just about to go get this guy into the NBA here.
Sure.
But I really do think that that's the best reasoning I could think of.
Yeah, other than that, I can't offer a reasoning really for it. Like you mentioned, lateral move at best, kind of a step down. Maybe it's like a personal matter. More, maybe I'm not sure about Figure's background, where he's from. The only thing I know is he was an assistant at South Carolina before he was at Austin Peay.
Right.
So I'm not familiar with his background as far as where he's from. But if he's from Texas, I could understand it. Maybe he wants to be closer to home, or maybe he has family down there or something of that nature. But from a basketball and professional standpoint, I just don't personally understand it.
Let me ask you this. Do you think that the timing of Figure's departure works in favor of the Austin Peay Governors? I personally think it does.
Yeah, I could see so, because they were about to enter a rebuilding period anyway.
Exactly.
Because Terry Taylor graduated, Jordan Adamson did enter the transfer portal. You're losing other guys like, the Mike Peak.
Yep.
So I think that it's
Next season might be hard for the Governors.
It's never a good time to lose a
Right.
coach, especially a good one like Figure. But if you could have a good time, it would be when you're about to enter a rebuilding period anyway, because now you can – it's not like you're rebuilding two things at once. You're not rebuilding just the roster. You're rebuilding a system and the roster, and you can do it at the same time.
I mean, it's going to be difficult for the Governors no matter how you look at it. But we also think the women's team is also just getting used to a new head coach. I mean, I don't even think that they've had time to
It's just a
meet the team yet.
bad-
Brittany Young coming in.
bad month or so to be
I mean,
Austin Peay
really,
basketball.
the coaching system for Austin Peay sports in general, I mean, for the main sports, basketball, football, I mean, it has just been influx of coaches just kind of jumping in and out, which, I mean, Grady, you also have to think these people have careers and they have things that they want to do in their life. So, I mean, if they're compelled to leave, I mean, that's just how things go. It still doesn't make it easier on these players trying to figure out 3 different new systems in one
absolutely.
season.
And that's just part of how college sports is nowadays. College sports is unfortunately a business, and sometimes business decisions do get made. We saw it a few years ago with Will Healy. He told the team he was going to stay, opted to decide to go to the University of Charlotte instead. That's just part of it. College football is a business at the end of the day, and as an athlete, you kind of got to make the choice you want to make, not based on the coaches or the staff, but on the school, and things like that. Because coaches never really stay concrete for long unless you're the Dabo Sweeneys or Nick Sabans of the world.
I was about to say, Nick Saban will never retire.
Yeah, Nick Saban will never retire.
Nick Saban will stay at his
He
post.
will-
and
he will
I think he'll
own
have a
the-
heart attack on the field.
He'll own the university. It's fine.
That's that's probably good.
He will buy it from the state of Alabama.
Who do you think it would be the next head coach of Alabama? I don't even
Dude.
think they're born yet.
Honestly, I wouldn't be shocked to see Lane Kiffin as the next head coach. That's purely speculation. But, I mean, let's say Nick Saban retires in the next 4 or 5 years, and Lane Kiffin's had a couple of, 8 to 10 win seasons at Ole Miss. I could see Alabama saying, hey, Lane, you were our OC for a lot of great years under Saban. Do you want to be his successor? I could see it.
Could definitely see that. Butch Jones going in there.
Yeah. Butch Jones, the coffee boy now.
Coffee boy. Oh
Yeah,
boy,
what's his technical title? Like defensive analyst or something like that?
I thought it was player support.
Something like that. Something that's just a made-up role,
Yeah.
basically.
I mean, kind of a made-up role.
Yeah.
Mostly. Or the get-back coach.
Yeah.
Those are my favorite ones. Yeah. Come on, coach. Those are my favorite coaches. Let's jump into our next topic. March Madness has kind of just been...
It's some madness.
It's madness.
It's madness.
So, as of right now, Baylor and Houston are set for the semifinals. And then we're looking at Gonzaga and USC for the West, and then Michigan, UCLA for the East.
So
Messed up my whole bracket, by the way.
Admittedly, I've said it on the show before, I have not followed college basketball as closely as I have this year, as I have in recent years, but I do have a lot of friends that I talk to frequently that do, and a couple of them have mentioned Gonzaga as both unbeatable, and they've already won the tournament.
Here's what makes me mad. I agree. So I had Alabama winning, and then they messed up my night the other night, and I decided not to look at my bracket ever again. because I was just fed up with it. But I do think Gonzaga's going to go ahead and take it all. I think it'll be Gonzaga and Baylor in the finals. Would be my biggest guess.
Go ahead and go and chalk with a 1 and a 2 seed.
Yeah, because I mean, look, if I had to pick a team, I've always kind of more gravitated towards Baylor. But after watching Gonzaga play, I just don't know who can beat them.
See, I've heard that from everyone that I've talked to, and I guess I need to get on the train and start watching some Gonzaga basketball because apparently it's just incredible.
It really is. I mean, it's just exciting to watch. I mean, March Madness. This is honestly my first March Madness that I have really watched at all in its completion, and I am really impressed with watching Gonzaga. And I remember watching them a few years ago and being really impressed with them, and then just to kind of come in and get to see them kind of make an actual run for it, it's been pretty exciting.
Absolutely, yeah. Gonzaga, they've kind of always just hung around, and now they're kind of getting their turn atop the pedestal.
Brad, what's your thoughts?
I had Brazil to go all the way.
That was pretty close. I think they almost made the tournament.
All right,
Brazil. Anyway,
love it.
This is another topic. This is kind of a weird topic because we don't usually talk about some controversial matters on the show. We try to keep it PG, but I mean, I think this is such a big moment right now that I feel like we need to just discuss it for a little bit here. Deshaun Watson is in quite a
heap
pickle.
of trouble.
I mean, he's in a bad shape right now on paper. I think it was 18 when I looked it up. I think
up to 19.
Ashton said it was 19 allegations of sexual misconduct by Deshaun Watson regarding massage therapists, and now it looks like he may not play ever again.
I don't think he will. I genuinely don't think Deshaun Watson plays football ever again.
Oh, I don't think so either. Here's my thing: if any one of these pops up to be true, he never plays another down in football. That's just my take on it.
Well, and so SI, Sports Illustrated, SI.com, did an interview with they referred to her by an alias, but Mary.
Right.
And she's not part of the allegations, but she had an incident with Deshaun Watson back in 2019, I believe it was.
Mm-hmm.
And she kind of told her story, what happened to SI, and it was bad. It was not a good
right.
look.
I've read a couple of articles, and it's pretty
I'll just
rough.
say, if you haven't, we won't repeat like the contents because they're a little explicit, but if you have not heard or seen the or read about what's been going on, what he's accused of, and the details of it, you should, because I hadn't until I read that. And when I read that, I was like, wow, that's bad.
It is pretty
because
bad.
I thought it was just him saying and asking, and no, it was pretty much forcing.
Yeah, I mean,
it's bad.
It's pretty rough. Now, to get into this on the analytic side of things, just kind of looking at what we know and everything else. I mean, there's no denying it is really weird timing. That's just how it is. There is weird timing behind it. Doesn't make, like I said, if anything of this becomes true after the investigations and everything else, and all these lawsuits, then I believe that Deshaun Watson should never step on the field again. It is weird timing, and if the Texans allow it, I think it kind of also forces him to play. I mean, there's a lot of court fees and everything else going on right now. I mean, if he, I forget what it's called, isn't it like the play to exemption or something like that while the investigation is going on?
Okay, I see what you're saying.
They did it with Ezekiel Elliott as well, as they were trying to figure out. The league was trying to make a decision. He was allowed to still play.
So the NFL has been pretty silent, I feel like, on this. They haven't said much, but I think part of that is because I've also seen where the Houston Sheriff's Office has not received any evidence from any of the 19 allegations. They're still just allegations at this point. But the Houston Sheriff's Office has not received a bit of evidence from any of the women that are, alleging these actions. Their lawyer, Tony Busby, who I've seen reported is apparently good friends with the Texans owner. And so the Houston Sheriff's Office not receiving any evidence when the lawyer has repeatedly said that, I have evidence, I just haven't given it to you guys yet, seems strange. Obviously, you're not going to assume that 19 people are all saying
right, that doesn't make sense to me.
One person, okay, 2 people, no, 3 people, okay. Like
we're pushing it.
By the time it reached 3 or 4, I was like, this is not a good look.
No.
It's a shame. It really is, because Deshaun Watson last year was blossoming into one of the best quarterbacks in the NFL. I mean, he was arguably the second or third best quarterback in the AFC, right there with Patrick Mahomes, Josh Allen, and some other guys like that. But I mean, It's bad. And for a Texans organization that was about to start heavy rebuilding anyway, it's even worse because you just lost your franchise signal caller, and you're about to go into next season, and your choices between Ryan Finley, A.J. McCarron, or Tyrod Taylor.
I think the best one you get Tyrod Taylor.
Oh, yeah, Tyrod Taylor's the obvious start, but he's still not. I mean, Tyrod Taylor's good, but he's not great.
He's not the
He's not even close to what Deshaun Watson is.
It's going to get real interesting, and also, I mean, it could just take a while for all of this to kind of really.
20 years from now, we're not necessarily gonna forget, but we're gonna have the 30 for 30 come out about it, and we're gonna be like, oh, I remember when that happened.
Yep, and it's gonna be kind of a wild experience, to be honest with you. And then it's just like I said, it's just a horrible situation, and I mean, I just hope that it gets cleared up, or at least
one way or another.
Answers are given, justice is served if needed. I just hope everything kind of turns out well in whoever's right's favor. I think is the best way to put it. I mean. Just horrible. I mean, and then to go on that, I mean, the NFL, I feel like, has really slacked in giving a definitive answer on what their answer is for stuff like this. Because it's different for everybody, and that's what I think is the most frustrating.
It's the NFL likes to play like they have a really great image, and they like to pretend that everyone really likes them. But the truth of the matter is that the NFL is not well liked. They're not very popular as a league. Now, are they popular on TV and things like that? Yes. Is the league itself and the way it handles its matters popular? Not particularly, because they, like you said, they kind of pick and choose. They tend to stay silent on things. And some of the things that they punish and versus not punish for seem confusing, like Kareem Hunt receiving only an 8-game suspension for literally knocking a woman out versus Josh Gordon not being allowed to play football because he likes to smoke weed.
Right.
It's just inconsistent and confusing.
Completely inconsistent. And it's just annoying. I think it's Randy Gregory from the Dallas Cowboys. He got in trouble for domestic violence, and he has now been allowed to come back twice, I believe. Yeah. And it just doesn't make sense to me.
It's like there's literally a running joke on social media where if in the NFL, if you want to like beat your wife or girlfriend, fine, cool, we'll let you play. But if you want to smoke weed or drink like, substances, codeine,
absolutely
whatever.
Not.
Absolutely not. The NFL will not stand for drug violence.
It's just they need to figure out a clear answer so that way they can at least give it to
everybody. I think
everybody.
the NBA's got it figured out. The NBA, you look at the NBA, and the NBA is popular as a league because they handle these situations well. They actually have a good commissioner instead of Roger Goodell.
Roger Goodell. Thanks, Roger.
There's a reason he gets booed at the draft every year.
That's true. And I'll tell you who does not have a good grasp of their league, and that is Manfred out of the Major League Baseball.
Like that transition.
You're welcome. He is just a bear to deal with.
Really?
Because I just feel like he has no idea of what the baseball fans or what baseball players want out of their league. I get the want to pick up pace, and I think a lot of people would enjoy seeing that. But I
personally would like to.
I know, but I just feel like the ways of implementing it are not necessary.
So how have they done like a pitch clock or anything at this point?
So they have discussed adding a pitch clock. I believe they've added a pitch clock in minor league baseball. And then they've also started implementing the idea of placing a runner on second in extra innings to kind of speed up overtime.
I don't necessarily like that second idea.
I don't either. To me, it's just because to me that's not you're putting a batter in running position, in scoring position.
On top of that, your best batters only bat like 300,
yeah,
320. If someone's having a really incredible season, they'll bat like 350.
Right, exactly.
So you're telling me that in overtime we should put someone on second when someone's only reaching first 35% of the time,
right,
at best.
Well, you got to think baseball. I mean, I feel like baseball at one point used to be, before I was really born, kind of in that huge long era of the 90s, later 80s, early 90s, where, I mean, it was a lot about hitting the baseball, being able to be good hitters, and all of this other stuff, and that's why we saw a lot of the steroid use and everything else, building muscles, knocking the ball way out of the ballpark. We saw that, and it was exciting getting to see that aspect, that offense in baseball, but then now we're seeing it to where hitting has become so popular and has become so dominant to learn and perfect. We are not looking at
no one plays defense.
No one plays defense. So I mean, I feel like pitching has become really hard to scout for, and I feel like the fielding doesn't necessarily have to be that great for you to make it into the major leagues. Now, of course, as me, who has never played a pitch in the Major League Baseball Association, this is just what I kind of view it as on the outside and how I kind of interpreted things growing up playing baseball.
Yeah, no, I can absolutely agree with that because the times I have, because you watch baseball, at least because I get most of my baseball knowledge from SportsCenter and Twitter and things like that. So I see bits and pieces, but from what I can see from my super casual not really even a fan point of view, is that you're right. A lot of all I see is like Giancarlo and Aaron Judge and guys like that just hitting the ball 600 miles out of the park.
I will say there was an Instagram video of Aaron Judge. I mean, absolutely obliterating a baseball in spring training last week. But, I mean, that's all you kind of get.
Right, and that's like it's been so long since I've seen a video of like a nasty slider or like a really like 100-mile, 120
and they're
mile an
out
hour
there.
fastball.
Those
Yeah.
videos are out there, and they are so cool to watch. And I mean, there was a picture, I forget what school he was from, and I forget his name, so it kind of makes it a little hard to tell the story. But he was pitching some stuff so nasty, and it had so much movement on it. The other team thought that he had pine tar in his glove.
Wow.
And they literally made the officials go check. Now, they did look at it. They didn't see anything on it, but they also didn't really inspect it as well as they should have.
Because the officials were like, all right, yeah.
All right, whatever. But they let him go. But, I mean, you could watch his pitches, and, I mean, the amount of spin that ball had on it and the amount of movement it had on it was just nasty. I also think back to watching Greg Maddux and Tom Glavine, all those guys who played for the Braves back in the 90s. They could paint the corners with every type of pitch in the world, and it was just beautiful to watch. And you just don't really get that same feeling anymore.
And I've said it numerous times, like, I don't care to watch baseball, but if Clayton Kershaw's on the mound, I love to watch baseball.
Oh, yeah. Clayton Kershaw throws heaters, man.
Yeah, he does.
He's baller, dude, and I love watching great pitchers and also defenders. I am a huge fan of the shift because it totally messes in the mind of the batters, and I approve of that. That's what you're supposed to do.
Yeah.
Figure out ways that are going to make it more difficult for that team.
If you win the mental battle, the physical battle's all that's left.
Exactly, yeah. And people are so against the shift, and I'm just like, no, that's strategy right there.
Yeah.
Like, you're just going to have to figure out a way to deal with that.
And see, I want to go back to your point about like growing up playing baseball because I kind of agree because growing up, I feel like if you really put enough practice in, anyone could be a good hitter, at least contact hitter.
That's true.
You may not have the natural power hitting, but because a lot of hitting to me is just hand-eye coordination and timing.
Yes.
And so as long as you are willing to work with it and like try and practice, anyone could be a good contact hitter.
Well, I think it was Pete Rose who mentioned hitting a baseball in the major leagues is one of the easiest things to do because you can visually see the spin on the ball.
Yeah.
Because you're so far away, you can actually see how that ball is going to fly.
Yeah.
Now, I mean, don't get me wrong, it's still hard to do. But
Absolutely.
Speaking of Pete Rose, a seasoned baseball player, who got caught with roids or gambling. Excuse me.
It was gambling.
Gambling. Yeah. But just going back to that, I mean, growing up, it was hit the ball hard, hit the ball far, be good at hitting. Don't worry about the grounding portion of anything else.
Don't
you
worry
still
about
learned it.
accuracy,
right.
just hit it.
Just hit the ball. Like, if you can hit the ball, you can play baseball.
Yep.
And so, I mean, I got pretty decent at hitting. My fielding was atrocious. I mean, oh my gosh.
It took me playing, this is going to be a throwback for anyone, but there was a Mario baseball game on the Nintendo GameCube. I don't remember the actual title of it, but I remember that's what made me understand the concept of timing your swing to aim your hit, because before then I was just trying to hit the ball.
Oh, yeah.
So
I mean, that's just kind of how it always went.
The concept of being able to control where I hit it.
Yeah, I mean, baseball was a lot of fun growing up, but my knees could not do it anymore. That's for 100%
Too many years
sure.
behind the mound, huh?
That does it for us here in 91.9 FM. Jeff Matthews, Ashton Rich, Brad Bader. We will see you next week on Crunch Time.